My name is Kelsey Ralph, and during the past year, I've explored public opinion to better understand the slow pace of transportation reform. As I conducted this work, I discovered very large differences in the views of planning students, engineering students, and the public. And I started to wonder, could there be too much consensus in the transportation planning classroom? Some consensus can be useful if it helps planners pursue shared goals with common language. But too much consensus can be problematic if it creates echo chambers where members principally speak with like-minded people. A monoculture of ideas can subtly discourage dissent. Worse still, echo chambers can lead individuals to lose touch with the views of others. This is made worse by the false consensus effect, the tendency to overestimate the extent to which others share your views. This combination may cause frustration for planning students if they underestimate the extent to which their views diverge from the public. To explore these issues, I conducted a large survey of the U.S. public and transportation students in planning and engineering programs. I assessed their preferences about 10 transport policies. First, I found considerable consensus among transportation planning students. All 10 policy positions achieved supermajority support. Many policies, including mixing homes and businesses, shifting trips to transit, walking, and biking, enjoyed near universal support, with less than 4% taking the opposing view. To make the extent of this consensus concrete, consider a class of 25 transportation planning students. For most of these policies, fully 24 students would be expected to hold the consensus view, and just 1 or 2 might disagree. Even for the 3 more contested policies, like raising gas taxes or implementing congestion pricing, just 4 to 8 students per classroom would be expected to disagree. With all this consensus, planning classrooms could begin to resemble an echo chamber. What about the public, shown here in purple? The good news is that some planning ideas are widely shared. Expanding transit, strengthening regulations, or mixing land uses would likely succeed in a public referendum. Yet several policies, particularly those that make driving more expensive or inconvenient, garner very little political support. The gap in views is starkest for road widening, the prevailing approach for dealing with traffic congestion. While 93% of transportation planning students think that we should not widen roads, just 24% of the public agree. To make matters worse, there isn't just a discrepancy between planners and the public. Engineering students, shown here in dark gray, also disagree. Part of the discrepancy is that planning students simply differ from engineering students and the public. They are much more liberal, urban, and multimodal. But even when we account for these differences, planning students still hold very different policy preferences. To better understand the underlying causes of these differences, we asked additional questions about factual knowledge and beliefs. I find 3 important differences. First, factual knowledge. Induced demand is the idea that widening a roadway is likely to reduce congestion only in the short term, because while the roadway will be faster initially, it will quickly attract drivers who previously avoided the area. Planning students almost universally understand induced demand, but only 1/3 of the public does. Now, this is understandable because the idea is counterintuitive and undermines prevailing transport policies. But more troubling is that just 70% of engineering students understood this essential idea. The groups also have very different stories about the rise of automobility in the 20th century. Planning students are 4 times more likely to say that driving was promoted by business groups and the government than they are to say that it was a natural evolution reflecting people's preferences. By contrast, engineers and the public are more evenly divided. Finally, while planning students are generally optimistic about the possibility for change, the public is much less optimistic. They are less likely to think that we could possibly change the transportation system. Moreover, they are less likely to agree that travel patterns will shift all that much, even if we had different infrastructure or different prices. Most importantly, all 3 of these differences in underlying views were strongly associated with less support for planning-endorsed policies. As educators, what can we do? First, help planning students avoid echo chambers. recognize their views differ from others, and practice sharing their ideas with the public. Finally, while I've focused here on transportation issues, I suspect that similar patterns of consensus and divergence likely exist in other domains of planning and public policy. Thanks for your time.